Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another monk chat session here at Empty Cloud Monastery. So today we're very happy to have as our main speaker, Shifu Jianhu. So one of the senior Chan monks from the Zhongtai Shan tradition out of Taiwan. And we have with us several other venerables coming to ask questions. So with me, we have Bhante Sumita from Sri Lanka, myself, Bhante Sudaso, and joining in from Dharma Drum Temple here in New York, there's Fasher Changhua, so Venerable Changhua, and joining from LA, we have Bhante Sanata Vihari. So we have several people joining in, and also a couple monks who aren't able to join live sent some questions as well. So hopefully this will all make for a wonderful and lively conversation. And there's also some lingering questions from past conversations with Master Jianhu, which we might bring up if the time allows. And finally, all those who are watching, feel free to type questions into the comments. And if there's time, we'll go ahead and take those questions as well. And Bhante Kamala Siri has joined in as well. So welcome to Bhante Kamala Siri. So at this time, we can go ahead and start with any questions. So any of the participating venerables who would like to ask questions, please go ahead. You can just unmute yourself and ask your question. So who would like to be the first? If nobody unmutes themselves to ask, then I can bring up one of the questions sent remotely, though the ones I have are of a somewhat incendiary nature, so maybe better saved for later.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Shifu, thank you, my respect to you, and thank you for joining. I would like to ask a question. Theravada and Mahayana, under these two schools of Buddhism, we all have a final goal, liberation. So according to Theravada Buddhism, we say attaining Nibbana is the final liberation. And so through we have three ways to attain Nibbana, according to Theravada Buddhism. By attaining Arahanthood or Pacheka Buddhahood or Samma Sambuddha. So I, in my little knowledge about Mahayana Buddhism, I think I know in Mahayana Buddhism, only through supreme enlightenment, the Buddhahood, one can attain the Nibbana. Would you like to please kindly explain a little bit more about the Mahayana standpoint of the final liberation? Thank you.
Okay, Venerables, it is an honor to be here to have a conversation with you. According to my understanding of Mahayana teaching, we view the Theravada teaching, meaning the Shravaka, Pratyeka Buddha, Arhat path, as the basis of our practice. In other words, all Mahayana Buddhists need to practice that as well, because the Shravaka, the Arhat or Pratyeka Buddha path of the Four Noble Truths and ending the afflictions or krishas is necessary for liberation to attain nirvana. So I do not think that there's a difference in that respect. We must attain nirvana as well, and to transcend the triple world, the realm of the desire, the realm of form, the realm of formlessness. And in that way, in that path is not really different from what is taught in the Agama or Nikaya suttas. However, there's an additional great emphasis on the Bodhisattva practice, which is to make the Bodhi vow, the Bodhi mind, to bring forth the Bodhi mind, which is to aim not to be content with reaching nirvana, but also to try to liberate as many beings as possible, countless beings, to liberation as well. And so there's a great emphasis on the paramitas, like the dana paramita, the virya paramita, shila paramita, the perfection of giving, perfection of morality, perfection of forbearance, perfection of diligence, perfection of meditation, perfection of prajna, wisdom, in order to be able to become skillful at many different ways to liberate different beings. So for my own liberation, I may only need to practice one way to end my afflictions to reach nirvana, but my way may not be suitable for some other people. So I want to make the vow to become familiar with or skillful with different ways to teach people. So for example, in this current age, we might need to learn different languages, learn about their cultures, learn about their professions, how to talk to doctors, how to talk to scientists, how to talk to physicists, and so on, so that they would become interested in the Dharma practice. So there's a great amount of emphasis on that. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Well, I have another question on this topic that was sent by Aya Soma. So Aya Soma is currently in Europe, which means it's somewhere around 2 in the morning, so she couldn't join personally. But her question, similarly, her question was that if in the Mahayana practice, the goal is to become a Samma Sambuddha, at least in the Theravada tradition, we say that it is impossible to become a Samma Sambuddha in this lifetime because there was already a Samma Sambuddha in this era. So that means that in order to become enlightened as a Samma Sambuddha, you would need to wait for a future life. So her question is, if the goal of all Mahayana practice is to become a Samma Sambuddha, doesn't that mean that there are no enlightened Mahayana teachers? That no Mahayana teacher ever attains enlightenment?
I think we need to first define what enlightenment means. So in Mahayana Buddhism, or in Chan Buddhism, or Chinese Zen Buddhism, when we use the word kai wu, or commonly translated as enlightenment, it doesn't mean that. So when we say that there have been many Zen masters who have been enlightened, it doesn't mean that they have attained Buddhahood. It means that they have achieved a understanding like that of the Buddha, in the sense of what is the meaning of no self, what is the meaning of Buddha nature, and that understanding brings unshakable faith in that practitioner, knowing that it is for certain that in one lifetime the person will become a Buddha. So the word enlightenment is probably used in differently from the Theravada context. Okay, I'm guessing. And so it's also, we talk about achieving Buddhahood in different ways. We talk about the 3 bodies of the Buddha, the Nirmanakaya, or the transformation body, which we view the historical Buddha as a transformation body Buddha, that his physical body appearing in this world 2,500 or 3,000 years ago was such a manifestation. And there's a Sambhogakaya, or the bliss body, which can only be seen by bodhisattvas, advanced bodhisattvas. And that is the grandest, most magnificent body that can be that imaginable in the realm of form. And there's the Dharma body, or the Dharmakaya. The Dharma body has no form. It has no range. It is immeasurable. And so it is possible to attain the knowledge or realization of Dharmakaya in the sense that you understand what it is. And however, it would take many, many, many lifetimes. We say the 3 asankhya kalpas, which is incredibly many lifetimes, to fulfill, to perfect the 6 paramitas, to completely eradicate your afflictions within the triple realm and your subtle attachment to the Dharma outside of the triple realm. So we talk about attaining nirvana in the sense of ending all the kleshas or the afflictions, the view of the self, and which and the karmic habits, along with those false views. And ending that, you will be able to transcend you won't have to take rebirth anymore. You have ended the existence in the triple realm. However, you will still have not become perfectly skillful with the emptiness of the Dharma. The emptiness of the Dharma. For example, in the Diamond Sutra, it begins by talking a bodhisattva or somebody aspiring to be a bodhisattva. How does he become a Buddha? How does he attain Samyo Sambodhi? How does he become a full Buddha? Well, he or she needs to practice giving and the other paramitas with the effort to not cling to anything. For example, when we practice giving, we might become attached to how the person is reacting, what the person looks, so how he appreciates or not appreciate you. And so in principle, an advanced practitioner may know, okay, all of that is empty. What he says, how he appears, and it's empty. I should not cling to it. Okay. But in practice, we believe that the bodhisattva still may cling to the forms, to these various forms and sound. And so that takes a lot of practice to get rid of those karmic habits, these attachments, which does not hinder. Once you understand emptiness of the self, it does not hinder you and produce another rebirth in the triple realm, in the triple world. But it hinders your ability to become skillful at helping others. Now, if any of that is not clear, please raise the question. Okay, there's kind of a lot of stuff there.
So I do have some follow-up on that. So first off, the initial way that you described an advanced Chan master is identical to how we describe a non-returner in the Theravada system. So an anagami is someone who has removed all of the coarse defilements of mind and is guaranteed to attain enlightenment in one lifetime. Thus called a non-returner. They won't return to an ordinary human life again. They'll attain full enlightenment in their next life. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. The next thing is that, so also in the Theravada system, we say that the only thing which can continue bringing somebody to further existence is if they have operating, first off, the desire for existence, so bhava tanha, the craving for bhava, personal existence, and the delusion of self, the delusion of self-identity or self-existence, what we call asmimana. So if somebody has completely removed bhava tanha, the desire for any kind of existence, and completely clearly seen anatta, so they no longer have the belief in self-existence, then there is nothing whatsoever that can tie them to anything in samsara. So how could such a person possibly continue to manifest any kind of personal existence?
Okay, good questions. The first part, when you say it sounds like the Chan master's enlightenment is like the non-returner. Well, actually, even in the Chan tradition of enlightenment, they are what we call the three gates or the three levels. The first level is when you first attain the true knowledge of the Buddha, true knowledge of the Bodhi mind, or true knowledge of non-self. However, that's not at the level of non-returner yet, because that doesn't mean that you have been able to eradicate any of the karmic habits. I don't know what would be a name in your tradition. So in our tradition, we talk, I mean, the Mahayana or the Chinese Mahayana tradition, when we talk about the afflictions that prevent us from attaining nirvana, we say there are two categories. One is the false views. So that includes the view of the self, the disbelief in causality, and so on. So the views, the wrong views. So that's what the first of the Eightfold Path is about. And then the second part is what we translate as karmic habits, or 习气, or the habitual reaction, mental reaction, arising from having that false views forever, for a long time, for many lifetimes. So, for example, I may study and theoretically understand the non-self concept, but in my everyday action, I may still act with the self-centered, and in many ways without myself detecting it. So these are the habits, okay? So it takes quite a bit of effort so that's the difference between the first stage, Shrota Apana, the stream enterer, is when you understand no self, right? And then between the first stage to Arhat stage, that's what you getting rid of the karmic habits, okay? Now, so the first level of enlightenment for the Chan practitioner doesn't mean that he has gotten rid of any of that karmic habits, okay? So he still has to work quite hard. So there's a saying in Chan Buddhism, in Zen Buddhism, once you are awakened, that is when the true practice begins. Okay, and there's the second level we call 重观, 出观, 重观, 生死牢观, and the third level, and it's not nobody in the Mahayana Buddhism talk about the comparison of the three levels of enlightenment to the Arhat stages. Probably the way I see it, they're different systems, okay? So I cannot say that once you pass the second gate, you become like a non-returner, which probably I would say, but I cannot say for sure. And what about the third level? The third level is supposed to be achieved full realization in terms of the Buddha's knowledge. However, you are not a complete Buddha yet. You're not a full Buddha. You still need to, may take you a lot of time to perfect the skillfulness of liberating people. So that's the first part. The second part of your question, when you say that it is the delusion of the self that keep us coming into taking rebirth into this world. Now, that is taught in Mahayana Buddhism as well, but it's considered Hinayana teaching. Okay, so I don't like the word either, so I'm just saying that. And so in Mahayana teaching, there are views that is not true. The advanced bodhisattva, like the Dhammakaya bodhisattva, those who have ended the afflictions for the triple world, who are at least equivalent of the arhat, that is, their Dhammakaya, they can manifest their Dhammakaya with will. So there's manifestations that they can appear in the world in the form that they like. So Guanyin Bodhisattva or Avalokiteshvara, for example, is well known to be able to manifest as a man, as a woman, as a king, as a beggar, as anybody that is needed, that the situation requires for the person the bodhisattva is trying to help. And those are not life in the sense that you take a rebirth from the womb, but they are able to manifest these appearances like real person. But then these manifestations will be gone when the need is gone. Okay. So there's a great debate. I mean, there has been a debate in the development in the Chinese understanding of both Mahayana and Theravada, and that is one of the point of debate. And later on, it's come to be accepted by pretty much all Chinese Buddhists that, it is possible to have manifestations, i.e. to appear in this world as advanced bodhisattva for the purpose of liberating beings and perfecting one's own wisdom. So a Buddha is supposedly able to be masterful with all possible ways of liberating all beings. And in our view, the Arhat has not achieved that expertise in all possible ways to manifest, to help living beings. That is what the Mahayana believes.
This is Changhua.
So, yes.
All right. My understanding regarding the comparisons of the Mahayana and Hinayana, Mahayana, we have a Tiantai and Huayan schools that the two systems systematically classify the attainment of each stages of, for example, the arhatship.
Yes.
Will be just the level that transcends the three realms.
Right.
The desire, the form, and the formless realm.
Right.
But that arhatship is not truly liberation stages like Samya Sambodhi. And then beyond the three realms, there are more stages. So I'm not an expert of Tian Tai or Huayan, but I studied some of them, talking about the art hardship in Theravada system. But again, I'm not an expert of Theravada as well. But I remember there is a comparison that that the arhat, the non-returner, kind of transcends the attachment to the body and the mental activity. So, in other words, transcends certain perception of defilement of the mind. But it depends on how we understand the mind, and that will decide how we understand the defilement of the mind. So if we understand the mind at certain level, then we only know the certain level of defilement. And then even though we transcend that, but it doesn't mean that we are truly liberated.
Okay, a couple background. The Tiantai Buddhism and the Huayan Buddhism are forms of Mahayana Buddhist schools developed in China. We say that there are 8 Mahayana schools in China. And for example, Madhyamaka, started by Nagarjuna in India, has its equivalent. And Yogacara school, started by Sangha, the brothers Sangha and Vasubandhu, they have their own equivalent in Chinese Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism. But there's also schools developed by Chinese masters who, I wouldn't say reformulate, but they explain or expound the dharma in their own system, in an effort to understand. Because see, China received the Buddhist text not in a historical way, just also the different Theravada texts and Mahayana texts all arrive at different times. So we had to make sense of it, make sense of all this different teaching. So Tian Tai Huayan both have their systematic way of understanding how all of these Buddhist scriptures fit together. And so part of their effort was to set forth the Bodhisattva path. For example, the 52 stages of the Bodhisattva to become a Buddha. And according to one system, the Arhat is somewhat equivalent to, okay, so in one system, the last 10 stages for the Bodhisattva to become a Buddha is called the 10 grounds. The 10 grounds, first ground, second ground, 10 grounds. And the Arhat is like the seventh ground. And once if the Arhat makes the Bodhisattva, the Bodhi resolve, meaning that I want to become a Buddha, I want to liberate all living beings. Once he make that Bodhi mind, the Bodhi resolve, then immediately the Arhat is a seventh ground Bodhisattva, which is very high level Bodhisattva. Now, so Venerable Chenhua was talking about, okay, but in Mahayana it still considered some defilements not yet cleared. So what is between the 7th ground and the 10th ground, for example? So once you reach the 10th ground, then you are pretty close to Buddhahood. Okay. So actually, it's quite interesting because let me first say the traditional teaching in Mahayana Buddhism regarding the difference between the Arhat and the Buddha. And then I want to say something about from how I look at this slightly differently from my own study. So the traditional Mahayana teaching says that the arhat, please don't take offense yet, okay? The arhat has realized the emptiness of the self, the person, the five skandhas, but not the emptiness of dharmas or all things. Okay, you still have it does not understand the emptiness of all dharmas, and that is the difference. That so then once you become an arhat, you still need to work on all of that to empty out the dharma attachment. So, and that is the traditional teaching. However, through my studies, starting from about 10, 15 years ago, I began to have doubts about that. From Nagarjuna's teaching, from some of the Mahayana Sutra teaching, Nagarjuna argues that the arhat, there isn't two kinds of emptiness of the self and emptiness of the dharma. It's just emptiness. Okay. And so from my understanding of emptiness, it doesn't make sense that the dharma emptiness will be different from the emptiness of the person. It didn't make sense to me. And you can actually prove that through Mahayana sutras. Through Mahayana sutras, there is that there, if you study carefully, it doesn't really make a difference. Talk about the difference between emptiness of the self and emptiness of the dharma. However, there is still work to be done for the arhat, and that's what I explained a few minutes earlier, and that is, let me make an analogy. Let's say suppose today I realized emptiness of this person. So say I become a stream enterer, right? The first stage, stream enter. I will still have 3 more stages, right? I have these karma habits. I need to clear away these habitual reactions and mental streams that act in a way on the self. So I need to clear that away before I can completely be free from the self. So that's how you become an arhat. So even though the arhat understands emptiness, but the arhat may not have a lot of practice with working with all the dharmas, because the arhat is focused on liberation. And so that is why the practice of giving and the liberating others takes a long time, because in order to become fully free from any attachment to dharma, it takes a great amount of practice. And for example, if I understand the emptiness of the self or the emptiness of the dharma, does that mean I know how to build a Zen center in California or in New York? It doesn't mean that. I have to do it. By going through it, I can learn what are the laws, how to go through a public hearing, how I can get the required documents, to how can I contact the contractors to build this house and build this place for a temple, for Buddhist temple. And that is because I have not become fully masterful or skillful with how dependent arising works. So in order to be to achieve perfection with dependent arising or dependent origination, you should be able to understand all of that. You should be able to understand how to talk to all different people in their language, and to understand how to properly teach this medical doctor, and then to this grandma, and to this. And that is not because you don't understand emptiness. You do, but you have not become skillful in how the different conditions come together to make something happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, but just to be clear, by the way, I have deep respect for the Bodhisattva path and for those who embark on the Mahayana quest to become Sammasambuddhas. I think that's great. Without that, there would be no Sammasambuddhas, and therefore no Theravada, Mahayana, no Arhants, no anybody. So I'm delighted that Mahayana exists, and I'm delighted that there are people who are striving to become Sammasambuddhas. But at the same time, well, first off, just pointing out the wish, I want to be a Buddha, is already based upon two things, which is self-attachment and craving. So what we would call bhavatanha, the craving for personal existence of some sort. So wanting to be a Buddha, well, you have to have a sense of me in order for me to want to be a Buddha, and you have to have craving in order to crave for the state of being of a Buddha, and you have to have some concept of personal existence. So this necessitates that one be deeply immersed in the delusion of self-existence and desire for limited existence. And this also is only relevant within samsara. So one also must still be caught within samsara. So again, I think this is all delightful because it creates Sammasambuddhas, but it also seems entirely unnecessary. So the issue of an arhat, so again, as defined in the Theravada system, so the way an arhat is defined in certain Mahayana schools and in Vajrayana is, again, what we would call a non-returner. So that's not what a Theravadan would call an arhat. But the Theravada definition of an arhat, there is absolutely no self-identity. There is absolutely no concept of me. There's absolutely no person to be found. And since there's no person to be found, there is no locus. There's no center point which kilesas can collect around. There's no center point which delusion can collect around. There's no focal point for any kind of coming into being, any kind of personal manifestation or personal existence. So it actually doesn't matter if an arhat doesn't have a detailed understanding of how to open a Zen center or how to teach grandmothers or doctors, any of that. It doesn't matter because there's no person who has any craving for ongoing existence. And therefore, there's no focal point for anything to circulate around. There's no focal point for the coming into any state of existence. So again, I find Bodhisattvas delightful, but I would, as far as I can tell, it is in fact attachment to self-existence and bhavatanha, the craving for ongoing existence that keeps them driving towards sammasan Buddhahood.
Let me explain, let me answer your first part later, but discuss your second part, which you say when there's no locus, it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter for the arhat, but it does matter for the rest of the unenlightened sentient beings, right? It may not matter for the arhat to enter nirvana now or later, but it does matter for the others who are not there, doesn't it? So you would need bodhisattvas, right? Okay, go back to the first part. You are absolutely right that at the first, when I as a novice am inspired by Buddhahood, I say, okay, I want to become a Buddha, I want to liberate all sentient beings. And that definitely is still has the delusion of the self there. So one way to understand this is to talk about the different stages of the body mind. So when I bring forth the body mind, the first stage is kind of a name only. In name only, we call it a vow. You made this great vow that I want to become a Buddha. I want to be compassionate to all beings. So, but at that point, you don't understand about the emptiness of the emptiness yet. Okay, so then you have to go through the stages of learning the Four Noble Truths, learning the impermanence, learning the five skandhas and all of that teaching. And so when you are able to achieve enlightenment in the Zen sense, that means you finally understand no self, and that is when you truly bring forth the body mind, not the body mind in name only, because that when you understand the emptiness of the self, that's when you bring forth the real body mind. But you're still not there. You're not there. You're not a Buddha yet. Okay, so and so the question is now, if there's no self, and let's say you are able to achieve the equivalent of being an arhat, you end all your attachment to the self totally. What keeps you going? Why would you keep going? All right, and that is the vow that you made at the beginning. It's the vow you made at the beginning that bring you out of the nectar of nirvana and say, okay, I'm not done. I don't have to do anything, but let me continue to work with other people who are not enlightened. So that's why the vow, the bringing forth the body and mind at the first stage, that is so important. But that vow is what keeps you going until you become a Buddha. Is that all right?
I like to add something, if I have time for that.
Yes.
Because when we going to discuss this topic, we have some barriers, and the main barrier is language. As example, today we use English. Then there is no any discussions or all together about the words, how we translate these words into English.
Mm-hmm.
In Tibetans, they have translate different. They use different words. In Theravada tradition, we use some words different. In Chinese Mahayana tradition, also, the words are different about some concepts. Other thing is the original languages, the Pali and Sanskrit. The Mahayana books are in Sanskrit. Theravada books are in Pali. Most of these books has translated into Chinese and through the Chinese to the Japanese language. Then, according to my understanding, mostly in China and Japan, the Sanskrit language they not study. In Tibet also. But now in Benares, they have the Sanskrit University, and Tibetans, they study there, and now they have original text in Sanskrit language, and they study in Sanskrit within Sanskrit language. Then, therefore, we have to carefully with this concept when we're talking about this concept. Now, I was listening about that Arhant concept, and this word, the Mahayana and Hinayana word. The Mahayana and Hinayana, we have to understand this thing. What is that? The Mahayana concept, that idea or that name came after first century. That's the meaning after 505 centuries, the Buddhist era. Then already Buddhism, the Pali Buddhism established in Sri Lanka and Myanmar. And we didn't use the Theravada or Hinayana or any word. Just we use word is Dhamma or sometime Vibhajyavada. That is the word used in Myanmar and Sri Lanka. Otherwise, fourth council, the Sangha, which happened in Kashmir, Sri Lanka or Myanmar, monks not participate to that. Then this Mahayana and Hinayana divide, it came in India after fourth council. Therefore, there is no any idea the Hinayana is the Theravada. Because I don't know, still I have that asked that question. What is the proof for that? Where is the resource we can find? The Mahayana, the Hinayana and Theravada is equal. We don't know that is. And in Sri Lankan history, also not use the Mahayana word. They use the word Vaipulyavada. Because of the after fourth council, they wrote books, the commentaries. They used that they used the name for the those books, Vaipulya Sutta. Vaipulya means the great commentaries. The great commentaries. That is the just meaning of that. Then in Theravada tradition, they recognized Kashmir Council and that tradition as Vaipulya Sastra, the great commentaries. Not use the Mahayana, that word also. Then another trouble is there. According to original Sanskrit copies, especially Ratnakuta Sutra, Shraddhotpada Sutra, Samadhiraja Sutra, like that original Sanskrit text. I like to say that it is it is. I don't know it is Mahayana or Theravada, but it is Sanskrit. But I like to use that word Sanskrit text and Pali text. According to original Sanskrit text, this Mahayana word has used in different meanings. But in Chinese, according to my understanding, Chinese translation is great vehicle. That is the idea of this. But in Sanskrit, in some books, they have used this word as the Mahajana. Mahajana means great. What is that? What is the good word for the English word for the jhana? I don't know what is the good word for that. But the great jhana, that is the meaning of the Mahayana. Other meaning is the great knowledge, the Mahajnana. Then this Mahayana word and Mahayana word has understand in China as vehicle. Therefore, according to original books, we can see so in different ways they use. And this Arahanta word also like that, because the Jainism, it is parallel tradition in India. Otherwise, the Buddhism also came from Buddhism not came from the Hindu tradition or Brahminian tradition. It is actually, I like to say it is came from the Jainism, because the Jainism, that word means the dhyana. Dhyana means meditation. The Buddhism also came from the meditation tradition. Then they also use this word Arahantas. Mostly in Ratnakuta Sutra, Mahayana Ratnakuta Sutra has criticized about the Jainist Arhanta concept. That is Jainism, Arhant, they said the Arhantas is the 8th step of the dhyana. It is 8 steps of the dhyana. It is not the At least it is not the Sotapanna. Therefore, we have to carefully use this word, because according to Pali text, the Arahanta means fully enlightened. There is no any defilement. He is not come back. That is the meaning of Arahanta. If anyone come back, or if there is any kind of defilement, then he is not the Arahantas. Otherwise, that what is that, the anatta or sunyata, this word has translated into English as emptiness, but grammatically sunyata means zero. Then self emptiness is emptiness is not good word. I think I like to say that the meaning of the that sunyata means the self concept or self attitude is zero. Self attitude is zero. That is the word of the sunyata. The experience of sunyata means, according to Pali text, also use this word sunyata. The meaning of that word is the free, totally free from the defilements as zero. There is no any defilement. Therefore, it is zero. There is then it is sunyata. That is the Pali in concept in the Pali text about sunyata. Then I think, according to this way, we have to carefully to understand the best thing. I'm happy about this, like these discussions, because we can discuss this all together. And I like to propose here, it is better if when we talk about that, if we try to get the original words from the original text and try to explain it and try to understand, then we can understand what is the meaning and what is the idea. It is very difficult to understand within the translations. Otherwise, in Tibetans and China also, I think everybody can agree to that. There is a different translations in different periods. Therefore, the best thing is they try to find the original word from the original sutras, original copies. Then we can get the clear idea about these words and what is the concept here. That is the thing I wanted to explain. That's enough. Thank you so much.
That is a good suggestion, and it will take a little effort. And I like what you said. Perhaps we should use maybe the Sanskrit tradition and the Pali tradition rather than the terms we've been using. I like that suggestion. It's true that our tradition, pretty much all the texts come from the Sanskrit source, okay, including the Agama Sutras. So, okay, yeah.
Can I? This is Changhua. Because I recently giving a talk on the Hawaiian school. I like the word Sunyata instead of emptiness. Sunyata is more close to the stage of letting go of the self or defilement. But then also I want to address sometimes does those questions, comments about because the self does not no self-centered, so the object the defilement cannot get you that part. We talk about Sunyata. Is we try to help practitioners let go of the attachment, but at the same time, we are not denying our true nature. So that's why Tathagata school come out. Say if we let go of the attachment of the subjectivity and objectivity, and there's it's not like nihilism that nothing exists. Okay, we still have Buddha nature, Tathagata, right? And so I remember in Chan school, um, we use the so-called, I just check the translation, four alternatives. This is a logic, try to break, detach all the attachments. So it's called, in Chinese, called 资料件. Okay, so if there is A and B, so some people might attach to A, some people might attach to B, and some people attach to both A and B, and some people will attach to non-A and non-B. This is the four levels of attachment. Even though we try to detach both A and B, it's still an attachment. So the Chan master will try to help. For example, ordinary people attach to I exist and environment exists. The money exists, the house exists. So that's one kind. I attach to both A and B. Then finally, if I practice Yogacara, I know that the phenomena is illusory, it's manifest from my mind. So I finally can attach to the objectivity, but I still attach to the objectivity, the mind. So I have to let go of the mind. And it's vice versa. That some people say, if my mind, I don't attach to my mind, the I or the self, then the environment won't exist. They will not get me. Okay, so that's it sounds to me that the Bhante Sudasos saying that if the self-center does not exist, so the outside object cannot get me, and then I'm free, I'm liberated. That's for me, from Chan school's perspective, this is also another kind of attachment. And also, when we talk about Shunyata, that finally, if I can let go of the subjectivity and objectivity, it's also attachment to the emptiness that we still need to let go. Right? So the four alternatives is we have to let go of these four levels of attachment. So that's why when we try to help the so-called the highest levels of practitioner, that finally we can let go of the subjectivity and objectivity, then it will be dangerous that we get into the so-called non-existence. So then Buddha taught us that there is a Tathagata. Did I pronounce it right? Yeah. That still, the mind still functional. The mind, the Buddha nature still exists. But how we operate the Buddha nature, not through the defilements of the mind, that's the part that we actually don't understand. How Buddha operates his mind so that he can talk, he can, eat, still eat, right? When he come to this world and, as a human, still eat, you still drink, but we don't understand how a liberate Buddha, that who attend Anyatoro Samya Sambodhi, how they operate their true mind. And we basically we operate our defiled mind without karma. That's ordinary people, and that's you know my thought.
Venerable Changhua brings up a question, an issue that I'm very interested in is once you attain the Sunyata of the self, right, the emptiness of the self, say like an arhat or advanced Bodhisattva. In our tradition, we talk about, okay, now your Buddha nature is functioning, or your Tathagata Garbha, your pure mind is functioning. Does the Theravada talk about that?
Sorry, what is that word again?
Okay, let's see.
Tathagata, Phatha.
Right. How do you type that
Tathagata
vertical mark so fast?
Is this correct? I try to say the Tathagata Garbha. Oh, is that
Tathagata
word?
Garbha.
Tathagata Garbha.
Tathagata Garbha. Yeah. So it is like the womb or the fetus, right?
Yes,
The fetus
that is
of the
Tathagata
Buddha.
Garbha. Yeah, it is
Right.
Tathagata Garbha. Yeah.
We also use the term pure mind or pure knowing or pure awareness. That is a mind free from all defilements, and that is what's operating when you achieve that emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does in Theravada, how do you talk about that? Do you talk about what the state of mind of an arhat is like? Do you have a term for that?
Are you asking a question or?
I'm asking a question. Yeah.
Yeah, it is it is look like in Theravada Pali we use the word is bhavanga chitta.
The what?
Bhavanga chitta.
Can somebody type that word for me?
Spell the word, please. Spell the word.
Bhanga.
Banda.
Again.
VA.
Venerable Kema, if you look in the private chat section, then the word is typed in there.
Oh, thank you.
Bhavanga chitta. What is bhavanga?
Bhavanga chitta. Yeah, bhavanga chitta.
What is bhavanga?
Bhavanga chitta means it is like an original mind without
without defilement.
It is not the totally without defilement, but the original stage of the mind.
Yeah, it's a venerable. It's a state where there's nothing from the past at all affecting the mind. There's nothing in the future affecting the mind. The person is totally in the present moment with the Arahat mind. You know, we can talk about a state before that where the person is in the present time with what they're doing and nothing's affecting them, but then they slip in the Arahat level into a place where they're in the present moment, actually living the moment like that. So it is what you say. It is a pure mind, pure knowing, pure awareness in that way. The thing that damages the people is when the past, all of the reactions we live through in the lower levels are coming from the past, the repetition of past reactions from past experience. And all the things that we worry about in the future, those are affecting us. That's all gone completely in the Arahat. This is a very, very rare state, you know. For instance, there's a question as to whether There's one involved in our school right now, whether he actually is or isn't, but it's to be said. I get to spend 3 months with him this coming year. I guess I'll find out, but it's a very interesting thing so far working with him, let me tell you, with the way he deals with things. Totally remarkable.
Can you say that all arhat has that?
Yeah. Yes. Like in the, I don't know how you put one. May I comment on something? Is it okay? Yeah. The interesting part about the Sunyata suttas in the Theravada, is that if you go to the last statement of one of the Chula, you have Chula Sunyata Sutta and the Mahachula Sunyata Sutta, 120 and 121. And in the Mahayana, in the Majjhima Nikaya. And the interesting thing is it throws everybody off by the last phrase of one of those, where it says basically, this was an exercise. Those are exercises. Those two suttas are exercises of giving up, giving up, giving up, giving up, and having things diminish, 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 and disappear. And then what's left? And what is interesting about it is in 121, the very last statement in the Mahachula, I think it's Mahachula Sunyata, the very last statement here in that one, or let's see if it's 120. There you go, 121, is the statement, there is present only non-voidness, namely that connected with the 6 bases that are dependent on the body and conditioned by life. Thus, he regards it as void of what is not there, but as to what remains there, he understands that which is present thus. This is present. And this is fascinating because actually Buddha had no idea of the word emptiness. In the end of the sutta, whatever is not there, he is totally void of. But as to what is there, this is present. So there is no emptiness. And then we go to the Mahayana, we look at Nagarjuna, and we find out, why did he set up the school for emptiness? And we have to go back to Kalupahana. Professor Kalupahana spent like 70 years. He's from the University of Hawaii, and his lifetime was like 2 things. One, he was studying Visuddhimagga with Buddhaghosa. Why did that happen? And the second thing he looks at was, why did this emptiness happen with Nagarjuna? And he decides that in both cases, those people were harmonizers, attempting to protect the existence of Buddhism in their time, attempting that it should not disappear because of what was breaking down with human beings arguing with each other, you see? So when we look at Nagarjuna, there were like 4 groups, I think. And I think when we go back to Buddhaghosa, I think there were 4 groups arguing, and the elders were very upset. They needed something to go like this and say, this is what the Buddha meant. And he built the Visuddhimagga. In the case of Nagarjuna, we look at something, I haven't gone that far, but I've talked to people who have, and they say, oh, definitely this was a case of somebody had to harmonize or the whole thing would have disappeared. You see, it's fascinating.
Yeah, well, that may be one of the reasons that Nagarjuna wrote what he wrote, but then I think it's more than that. When Nagarjuna talked so much about emptiness, I mean, the emptiness that Nagarjuna talked about is nothing more than dependent origination. It's really just the different sides of dependent origination. Okay, so maybe he used the word more than the sutras did, but he wanted to show that on the one hand, when you have everything, all dharmas, everything are dependently arisen, they have no substance, no permanent substance, they have no persisting identity, right? All of that, and that's fully present in the Nikaya or Agama Sutras already. On the other hand, because all dharmas are dependently arisen, a bodhisattva make use of that, knowing that there's no substance, but I can use that to build a temple so I can ordain people, right? So I can teach people, and I can learn how to use, I need to understand some of the dependent conditions to use a computer to do a online teaching, right? So he also emphasized the importance of that. But I don't. It's not like the emptiness is a new concept that Nagarjuna invented. He was just going back to the source text, the fundamental concept of dependent arising.
Yeah, I would actually chip in here that as far as I can tell from the Sutta Pitaka, the concept of emptiness that we find in the later Mahayana texts is not in any way contradictory to or absent from what we find in the Pali Suttas. In fact, I've always found it very puzzling when every once in a while I encounter teachers who say that Theravada doesn't talk about emptiness. But actually the idea in the suttas that, for example, Nekachanagota Sutta, where the Buddha clearly states that things cannot be described either as existing or as not existing.
Yes.
I mean, that's just about the most succinct summary of emptiness I can possibly imagine. And interestingly enough, in that sutta, the Buddha doesn't actually use the word sunyata. But nonetheless, that's clearly what he's talking about. And this is actually the case throughout the Pali Canon. There's countless places where the Buddha makes statements which sound like you're reading Nagarjuna. But he doesn't actually use the word sunyata in many of those suttas. Some he does, but many he doesn't. Anyway, I'm keeping an eye on the time, and I'd like to invite Bhante Sanata Vihari, since he's been silent so far. If you have any questions or comments for our speaker or the panel, please go ahead.
Yes, Bhante, thank you. Seifu, so I kind of wanted your perspective on something that I was just thinking about the Chan Zen tradition. So I was thinking about the patriarchs like Huaneng in China and Hakuin in Japan, and how Huaneng woke up by listening to the Lotus Sutra, and then he went to the temple and did the whole monastic thing, and then received another level of awakening, and then Hakuin through meditation, through zazen, but he still had to do more work even after that. And so we see awakening happening through, they both kind of seem sudden, and one was through kind of like listening, and one was through practicing. And then when you see them kind of come to the end of it, it seems more practice-based than listening. So I just wanted to hear about like what, from your perspective, from your understanding of the Chan Zen tradition, sudden awakening, gradual awakening, through listening, through learning, through practice, how do you put all these things together?
There is a debate about whether you can do sudden awakening or is gradual awakening or gradual realization debate. But the Chan masters would say that, well, that's a matter of perspective. For example, the most famous Chinese Zen master is who we call the sixth patriarch, Master Huineng. He's considered probably the greatest Chinese Chan master. Mm-hmm. Now, Master Huineng, he, as a lay person with no prior training, he listened to somebody chanting the Diamond Sutra, and then he attained a first level awakening. And then he gave up everything to seek the fifth patriarch. And when the fifth patriarch explained the Diamond Sutra to him, he attained full awakening. Now, when I say full awakening, I don't mean Buddhahood or arhatship. I mean, understanding the Buddha's, have a realization of the Buddha's wisdom. So he attained enlightenment that way. Now, I think, is it through practice? Is it through listening? I think it depends on the person. In Buddha's time, we have many disciples who attain various levels of realization while listening to the Buddha, right? Lecture. We also have people who meditate quite diligently in the forest and attain various levels of realization. So I think that just it could come at any opportune time when the conditions are ripe. Okay, and so when we look at a master like Sixth Patriarch Huineng, wow, how come he get enlightened so fast? Yeah, we try 20 years and we don't get where he is, right? And I think my view is that, and I think many people's understanding would be that, okay, he must have practiced many lifetimes before, right? So it's not like you can just all of a sudden get there. If you do, you have accumulated many lifetimes of good roots, or just good karma, practicing. So it's a non-issue whether sudden enlightenment is true or gradual enlightenment is true. I think it's a non-issue. It's really, you just got to put in the work with proper guidance. All right. And so you can put in a lot of work without getting anywhere if you don't understand dependent arising, right? If you don't contemplate on the falsehood of the self. So then that would be just prerequisites, kind of like prior training. And I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and I would like to give space for one of the questions from the remote lay audience. And then if we have time, we can continue with discussion after that. So Kumu, who's one of our regulars, asks, what is the best way to practice letting go without falling into the trap of developing apathy? So Master Jian-Hu, if you would like to take this up as a topic for conversation.
Sure. Let me start first, and I would love to hear the other venerables talk about this issue. So in our tradition, the question, the solution is pretty simple. You make the great vow. you make a vow to liberate all beings. Now it's daunting to say that, and but we encourage people to say, well, as long as you make the vow, one day you'll be able to do it, because that sets the direction of your cultivation. Okay, and so when we contemplate on letting go, it is still very easy for us to get into a period where you just don't want to deal with anything. You don't want to associate with anybody, like what I'm doing now. Kind of. No, seriously, I think periods of solitude is very important. It doesn't mean that I'm being apathetic, but I need solitude, and I need a lot of meditation practice in certain periods to go deeper into examining my thoughts, my mind, okay? And into deepening the understanding of the Dharma. But then what my master tend to do is he give you that time, but then he also throw you into a Zen center, and you have to teach all the time, and so he puts you back and forth so that you try to achieve a balance that way. So when we have in our monastery system, we have dozens of temples or Zen centers that the main focus there is to teach. And so when you teach, you run into all kinds of issues, family, lay people come to you with family issues, and so that develops your empathy, your compassion. But then you run the risk of letting go of your not holding on to your own practice, right? So the times you get exhausted, you get burned out, and you want to go back to the monastery, to the mountain, and do your own practice. So to me, it's not easy at all, but it is a continuing process of trying to balance this two, the nirvana path and the bodhisattva path. I need to balance that with specific period of time focusing on one and not the other so much. Okay. Maybe the other venerables can share your experiences.
I think in Theravada Buddhism, what we also do have what we call sila. In sila, we also take vows. The 5 precepts is they are the vows that are undertaken by the lay people. Every day, every single day, you observe. I undertake to observe the precept to abstain from killing living beings, and abstain from taking things not given, and sexual misconduct, forced speech, and drinks and drugs that cause intoxication. And then full moon day, you take the extra 3 precepts, like not eating at inappropriate times, and then getting rid of all the songs, dance, music, entertainment, all that stuff, and even getting rid of the high and luxurious chairs. So that's a kind of letting go things. Like, for example, our craving for food is something that is really difficult for many people. They are so craving for food. They want to go one restaurant to another. They want from one variety of food menu to another. So yeah, just try not to eat one meal, skip the dinner on a day like that. That would actually practically give you an opportunity to get rid of that. I think practicing sila would be really important in order to get to concentration, samadhi. And when you are in samadhi only, you're bodily and mentally calm, and then the wisdom will bloom. So that is I think that is our way of doing too. I think it is almost the same, although maybe we keep with different jargons, technical terms, maybe. Well, looks like the practice, maybe differently interpreted or using different technical terms.
Another piece of advice I would give for dealing with the tendency towards apathy is to examine the mind state of apathy. What does apathy feel like? If we look closely at apathy, we recognize that apathy is not letting go. Apathy is holding on to our aversion. So apathy is when we have a aversion to experience, a resistance to knowing, a resistance to mindfulness, actually, a resistance to awareness. So apathy is arising from a defilement of mind, whereas letting go is a completely wholesome state of mind, which is characterized by bliss. It's characterized by contentment and joy. It's characterized by a bright, sharp alertness of mind, which is very different from the dull grumpiness of apathy. So those are my thoughts. So going the path of analysis, analyzing apathy, and piecing out the unwholesome components.
Great point there. Totally agree. We also give 5 precepts and 8 precepts to the lay disciples, but yes, lay people can take the 8 precepts on their own, following a particular liturgy, right? And Bhante's Sudaso's point is really important, because it's easy to focus on one side of letting go. Okay, I don't want to eat too much. I don't want to have too much craving. But it's easy to ignore the other side of letting go, which is you hold on to the other extreme. That would not be letting go either, right?
Sifu, can you tell us what is the other 3 precepts other than 5 precepts for the 8?
I think exactly the same as what Venerable has said. we had the same 8 precepts.
The sixth one is what is that? It is about
one is not taking meal after
After,
at
yeah.
inappropriate times. One is not to use luxurious high seat or bed, and one is no entertainment or jewelry and so on. I think it's the same, right?
The same. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting towards the end of our time. We have just about 2 minutes left. Is there any last very short question for Master Jianhu before we close for the evening? Okay, well, maybe that's it for now. So thank you very much to Venerable Jianhu for taking the time to share Dhamma with us in this discussion. And thank you to all the Venerables who joined in. So Venerable Changhua, Bhante Kamalasiri, Aya Kema, Bhante Sanata Bahari, and of course, Bhante Sumita. So thank you all for participating in this wonderful Dhamma discussion. And we'll be continuing to have these monk chat for monks sessions. Our next one will be a week from now with Ajahn Brahmali. So if you're interested in joining in, please send me an email and we'll connect you with the next session. Otherwise, we can close for the evening with 3 sadhu. So please join your hands in Anjali. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you all next time.
Thank you to have an opportunity to learn from all of you.
Thank you, sir.